Hello dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic, funny love story, so let's get started. Part 1, a humorous encounter. Lily Brooks stood in front of the mirror in her tiny Chicago apartment, holding a hairbrush in her hand, trying to do something with her messy brown hair. At 26, she was an ordinary office worker at Horizon Realty, a small real estate company she proudly called the Tiny Army in a world full of giants. Lily wasn't tall, barely over 5 feet 3 inches, but her sparkling blue eyes and wide, goofy smile could make anyone pause for a second to take another look. She often laughed at herself, calling herself a walking disaster, hard-working, always trying her best to make everything perfect, but inevitably stumbling into small mishaps like dropping pens during meetings, forgetting documents at home, or bumping into co-workers while carrying coffee. This morning, she wore a simple white blouse, dark blue jeans, and tied her hair into a loose bun. A failed attempt to look more professional before a business trip combined with a retreat to Hilton Head, South Carolina. Lily didn't like rich, arrogant people, those she thought only knew how to flaunt money instead of doing real work. She loved her simple life, a cup of black coffee in the early morning, an old book read on the sofa late at night, and weekends spent helping friends repaint their houses. But today she had to bring a suitcase, facing a big project that her kind boss, Mr. Tom, called a golden opportunity to collaborate with Grayson Properties, a massive real estate conglomerate. Lily dragged her suitcase out the door, nearly dropping her keys onto the floor, and mumbled, "I can do this, as long as I don't spill coffee on the partner's boss." She chuckled to herself, but that smile, a clumsy accident smile, was what made her colleagues unable to stay mad at her for long, even though she'd once dropped an entire tray of donuts during a company-wide meeting. Lily's life wasn't glamorous, but she was content with it, as long as she could take care of herself without relying on anyone, especially the rich types she always steered clear of. She arrived at O'Hare Airport with her suitcase clattering behind her, the sound of her worn white sneakers echoing on the tiled floor. She checked her plane ticket for the third time, a habit to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything, then boarded the flight to Hilton Head, unaware that her life was about to change because of a fateful cup of black coffee. Luke Grayson sat in the VIP lounge at O'Hare Airport, his deep blue eyes cold as ice, scanning the phone screen, checking emails for the 5th time in 10 minutes. At 30, he was the CEO of Grayson Properties, one of the largest real estate firms in the U.S., renowned for skyscrapers and luxurious resorts stretching from New York to California. With neatly combed black hair, a perfectly tailored dark blue suit, and a chiseled face like a statue, Luke was the epitome of success, handsome, intelligent, and powerful. But behind that alluring exterior was a loneliness he never admitted, an invisible wall he'd built to keep everyone at a safe distance. Luke hated slowness and impractical people. He ran his company like a precise machine, unforgiving of mistakes or unnecessary emotions. "Time is money," he often told his team, his deep, sharp voice leaving no room for argument. But today he had to leave his office in downtown Chicago to fly to Hilton Head, South Carolina, for a collaborative project with a small company he'd never heard of, Horizon Realty. He wasn't thrilled. To him, it was just a mandatory trip to oversee a new resort, something he could have delegated to an assistant if not for the board's advice. "Luke, you need to take a break." He stood up, adjusting his suit collar, his polished leather shoes reflecting the light from the airport floor. His mother had passed away when he was young, and his father, a stern man, had taught him how to win, not how to love. Since then, Luke lived in his glamorous world, a luxurious penthouse, extravagant parties, and endless meetings. But there was no room for warmth or real connection. Luke boarded the flight, not looking at anyone, just wanting to get there, finish the job, and return. But he didn't expect that a clumsy girl with a cup of coffee would turn everything upside down. The flight from Chicago to Hilton Head jolted slightly when the plane hit a patch of turbulence, and Lily Brooks, seated in the middle row, flinched, causing the coffee cup in her hand to tip over. She'd been gripping it tightly, a habit to stay alert before her first business trip. But luck wasn't on her side. The hot coffee spilled out, soaking the dark blue suit jacket of the man sitting beside her. Luke Grayson. Lily turned to him, her blue eyes wide with panic, her voice stammering. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Luke, who had been staring out the window with a blank expression, turned around, his icy blue eyes scanning the coffee stains spreading across his jacket. He sighed, his voice deep and sharp. "Do you know how much this jacket costs?" Lily fumbled for tissues in her bag, frantically wiping at his jacket, only making the stain worse. "I'm really sorry. I'll pay for it. I can get it cleaned," she said, her voice high-pitched with panic. Luke gently but firmly pushed her hand away. "Stop it. You're making it worse." They locked eyes for the first time, and the air seemed to freeze. Lily thought he was the typical arrogant rich guy she despised, with his expensive suit and haughty attitude. Luke saw her as a walking disaster, clumsy, impractical, and spilling coffee on him without a second thought. "You should be more careful," he said, his tone cold, turning back to the window. Lily blushed, muttering, "Thanks for the advice, but I don't need it." The plane landed at Hilton Head, and both thought they'd never see each other again. But when they arrived at the luxurious resort with its lush palm trees and shimmering pools, they were shocked to learn they'd be working together. In the first meeting room, Lily's boss, Mr. Tom, introduced them. "This is Lily Brooks, our project lead from Horizon Realty. And this is Lucas Grayson, CEO of Grayson Properties Lily." And Luke said in unison, "Him, her?" Lily sat down, her hands trembling as she held her pen, while Luke crossed his arms, his cold gaze betraying a flicker of surprise. They disliked each other from that first glance on the plane, and now the new resort project forced them to collaborate. Lily whispered to herself, "This trip is going to be long." Luke, in his mind, thought, "How am I going to survive with this girl?" But neither knew that. From that spilled coffee, a funny and sweet love story was about to begin. Part 2. Conflict and the Fateful Kiss. Lily Brooks stepped into the meeting room at the Hilton Head Resort, clutching a stack of documents to her chest, her old white sneakers squeaking on the glossy wooden floor. She tried to maintain a professional demeanor, her brown hair tied up high, her white blouse neatly pressed, but her blue eyes couldn't hide the tension as she saw Luke Grayson, sitting at the head of the table, arms crossed, his face as cold as an Antarctic iceberg. 3 days had passed since the coffee spilling incident on the plane, and Lily still hadn't forgotten his arrogant remark. "Do you know how much this jacket costs?" She told herself to stay calm, but just seeing Luke made her want to snap back instantly. Luke, in a dark gray suit without a single wrinkle, watched Lily walk in with an unconcealed look of skepticism. He didn't trust her, a minor office worker from Horizon Realty who had spilled coffee on him and was now his colleague on the new resort project. To Luke, she embodied clumsiness and inefficiency, the two things he despised most in life. He tilted his head, his deep voice resonating as she sat down. "Did you bring all the documents, or did you forget something back in Chicago?" Lily blushed, setting the stack of papers on the table with a thud, slightly louder than necessary. "I didn't forget anything, thanks for your concern," she replied, her tone dripping with mock sweetness, but her eyes sharp as a knife. Luke smirked, not a smile but a mocking twitch. "Good, because I don't have time to fix your mistakes." The first meeting unfolded like a verbal wrestling match. Luke wanted everything fast and simple, a modern, minimalist resort built in record time to catch the tourist season. "We need to finalize the design in 2 weeks," he declared, tapping his pen on the table like a command. Lily shot back immediately. 2 weeks? Are you kidding? A resort needs details, pools, landscaping, relaxation spaces, not just some concrete blocks thrown together to get it done. Luke frowned. "Details don't make money, Miss Brooks. Speed does." They argued incessantly through every meeting that followed. Luke criticized Lily for being overly meticulous. She spent a whole hour debating the color of the pool tiles, while he just wanted the cheapest and quickest option. Lily bristled at his condescending attitude as he constantly interrupted her with remarks like, "You overthink everything," or "Don't waste my time." Once she nearly dropped a glass of water as she stood to argue, and Luke said coldly, "Careful, don't make another mess." Lily gritted her teeth. "Thanks for the advice, but I don't need you to teach me how to hold a glass." Despite their mutual dislike, they couldn't deny that their clashes produced unexpected results. Lily's meticulous ideas, combined with Luke's decisiveness, gradually shaped a design that was both beautiful and practical, but neither of them would admit it. Each meeting ended with Lily storming out, cheeks flushed with anger, while Luke stayed behind, rubbing his temples, wondering why he found her both infuriating and intriguing. On Wednesday afternoon at the Hilton Head Resort, the sun hung low on the horizon, casting a brilliant orange glow through the large glass windows of the meeting room, illuminating the wooden table cluttered with documents, blueprints, and two cold coffee cups. Lily and Luke sat across from each other, the atmosphere taut like a string about to snap. Today they were arguing about the resort's spa area, a topic neither would yield on. Lily slammed her hand on the table, her voice rising. "I've said it before, the spa needs a quiet space, greenery, natural light, not just cramming some massage chairs into a corner like you want. Guests pay to relax, not to sit in a concrete box." Luke snapped back, his deep voice cutting like a knife, his icy blue eyes glaring at her. "If you keep arguing like this, when will we ever get anything done?" "I don't care about greenery. I care about costs and deadlines." Lily jumped up, her brown hair spilling loose from its bun, her blue eyes blazing. "If you don't care about the guests, then don't do this project. I won't let you turn it into some cheap warehouse." Luke stood too, towering over her by a head, his gaze frigid, but his voice starting to lose control. "You think you know everything? I've been doing this for 10 years, and you're just a lowly clerk with ridiculous ideas." The room's tension flared, as if they were about to lunge at each other and start throwing punches. Lily took a deep breath, ready to yell to drive her point home. She was fed up with his arrogance. "Listen here, I'm not—" But before she could finish her shout, Luke completely lost his patience. He stepped forward, quick as a flash, and suddenly kissed her to shut her up. His lips pressed against hers, firm but not rough, just enough to stop the yell forming in her throat. Lily froze, her blue eyes wide with shock, her hands stiff in midair as if petrified. Luke was stunned too. He hadn't meant to do it. It was an impulsive reaction to her nonstop shouting. The kiss lasted exactly 3 seconds, but to both of them, it felt like an eternity. His breath was warm, carrying the scent of coffee and a hint of sandalwood cologne. Lily felt her heart pounding wildly, her mind blank, while Luke, the man who always controlled everything, suddenly felt a surge of heat run down his spine. Luke pulled back, a flicker of panic in his eyes, muttering, "Sorry, I just wanted you to stop talking." He turned his face away, rubbing the back of his neck to hide his embarrassment, his usually cold demeanor now tinged with a slight blush at his ears. But Lily didn't let it slide. She snapped out of her daze, her shock swiftly turning to fury. What did you just do?" she yelled, her voice trembling, her right hand instinctively rising and slapping his left cheek hard. The smack echoed in the quiet meeting room, startling them both. Luke touched his cheek, eyes widening at her, not from pain but from surprise. "You just slapped me?" he asked, his deep voice laced with disbelief. Lily, flushed from her neck to her ears, her hands still shaking from the slap, shouted, "You deserved it. Who gave you the right to kiss me like that? Who do you think you are to shut me up that way?" She stammered, torn between anger and embarrassment, her other hand flying up to cover her mouth as if she couldn't believe what had happened. Luke stood still, hand on his cheek, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion, and then something indescribable. He opened his mouth to say something, but only sighed. "I don't know. I didn't mean to. Forget it." Lily took a deep breath, trying to calm down, but her voice still quivered. "Forget it? You think I can forget what just happened? You're crazy." She turned, intending to storm out, but her foot caught the chair, nearly tripping her. Luke instinctively reached out to catch her, but she shoved his hand away. "Don't touch me!" Lily plopped back into her chair, hands trembling as she grabbed her cold coffee cup, pretending to look at the documents to hide her flushed face. Luke sat down too, crossing his arms, staring out the window but clearly not focused. The tension in the room no longer stemmed from their argument, but from a strange, awkward vibe full of meaning they dared not face. Lily muttered to herself, "I just slapped him, and he kissed me. What's going on?" Luke in his mind wondered, "What did I just do? And why aren't I mad that she slapped me?" They resumed the meeting in awkward silence, exchanging only curt sentences about the blueprints. When Lily stood to gather her papers, her hand accidentally brushed Luke's as he handed her a sketch. Both jerked back, saying in unison, "Sorry," then turned away, faces red as ripe tomatoes. Lily left the room with flushed cheeks, muttering, "I'm going crazy. Why is my heart beating so fast?" Luke stayed behind alone, touching his slapped cheek, then his lips, where he just kissed her, whispering, "Damn it, this isn't good." Part 3. Love slowly blossoms. After the unexpected kiss and the fateful slap in the meeting room, Lily Brooks and Luke Grayson, found themselves in a strange state. In awkward sweetness, they both tried to hide with sharp words and averted gazes. The moment his lips touched hers, even if only to silence her, left a wordless ripple in their minds, like a small wave quietly spreading beneath a calm surface. Lily, with her flushed cheeks and racing heart, couldn't erase the warm sensation of Luke's breath, something both foreign and familiar, both irritating and captivating. She told herself it was just an accident, a silly moment not worth dwelling on, but every time she thought about it, her hand unconsciously touched her lips, as if checking whether it was real or just a bizarre dream. A voice screamed in her head, "I just slapped him, but why can't I forget that kiss?" Luke, who always controlled everything with coldness and reason, wasn't faring much better. He sat alone in the meeting room after Lily left, his hand brushing the cheek where her slap had landed, a gentle sting he couldn't understand why he found oddly pleasant. That kiss wasn't planned, not something he'd intended, and it unsettled him more than any failed deal ever had. He told himself, "I just wanted her to shut up, that's all." But deep down, he knew it wasn't true. The image of Lily's soft lips, her wide, shocked blue eyes, and the sudden slap kept replaying in his mind, making him both angry and yearning for something he didn't dare name. The next day, when they had to face each other in the following meeting, the awkwardness between them was palpable, but masked by clumsy facades. Lily walked into the room, clutching her documents tightly like a shield, her eyes deliberately fixed on the table instead of meeting Luke's. She sat as far from him as possible, her voice sharper than usual as she began. "Let's get started. I don't want to waste time." But her voice trembled slightly, and Luke noticed. She was trying to act normal. He, in his crisp, dark gray suit, sat upright, tapping his pen on the table as always, but his cold blue eyes kept drifting to Lily, only to dart away quickly when she looked up. "Good, the sooner the better," he replied, his deep voice dry and stiff, as if denying the unease swelling in his chest. They discussed work in short, clipped sentences, avoiding direct eye contact, but the air in the meeting room was filled with awkward pauses. When Lily accidentally dropped her pen on the floor, both bent down to pick it up, their hands brushing for a fleeting second. Lily yanked her hand back as if electrocuted, blushing. "I can get it myself." Luke retreated, muttering, "I wasn't trying to help." But both knew it was a lie. They were hiding their feelings behind their usual sharpness, yet their evasive glances betrayed them. Lily thought, "He kissed me, I slapped him, so why is my heart racing like this?" Luke wondered, "Why aren't I mad at her? Why do I want to do it again?" The new resort project at Hilton Head gave them no chance to avoid each other. They were forced to work together more, with meetings stretching into field trips, and from there, humorous and sweet moments began to creep in between them, melting the icy barrier that once separated them. But before those moments unfolded, this sweet awkwardness, like a clumsy dance between two hearts not yet ready to admit their feelings, silently paved the way for their affection to grow, bit by bit, amid sharp words and meaningful, evasive glances. On a Friday morning, golden sunlight stretched across the resort, and Lily and Luke stood by the main pool to survey the spot for the spa area. Lily, holding a thick stack of documents, was excitedly explaining her idea for a small garden by the poolside. "Look at this. If we add palm trees and some tropical bushes, the guests will—" She didn't finish her sentence before a sudden gust of wind blew through, sending the entire stack of papers into the water. Lily shrieked in panic. "Oh no, my documents!" She knelt by the pool's edge, reaching to grab them, but nearly falling in. Luke, standing beside her with a cold expression, sighed. "Can't you ever do anything without causing trouble?" But before Lily could snap back, he took off his jacket, tossed it aside, and jumped into the pool with a perfect dive. Lily's jaw dropped, watching him swim through the clear blue water, retrieving each soggy sheet. When Luke surfaced, his black hair dripping water down his face, he handed the wet stack to Lily. "Here, and next time, tie them down." Lily blushed, both annoyed and embarrassed, taking the documents and muttering, "I didn't ask you to do that." But as she looked at Luke, his white shirt clinging to his body, water streaming down his chiseled face, she involuntarily swallowed, her heart beating faster than usual. Luke climbed out, shaking his head to flick off the water, and suddenly chuckled when he saw Lily's flustered state. "What? First time seeing a handsome guy soaking wet?" Lily turned away, hiding a smile. "You're way too full of yourself." But as they sat together to dry the papers in the sun, they couldn't help but giggle over the ridiculous situation. Lily stole a glance at Luke, thinking, "He's not so bad when he laughs." Luke inwardly wondered, "Why did I jump in for her?" A few days later, on a cool evening, Lily decided to escape the stuffy meeting room and head to the beach near the resort. She needed a space to breathe, away from the blueprints, the arguments, and especially the cold yet meaningful blue eyes of Luke Grayson. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a faint orange streak across the sea, Lily slipped out to the beach. She kicked off her old sneakers, walking barefoot on the cool sand, feeling the grains slip between her toes as a way to soothe her jumbled mind. Lily pulled her phone from her jeans pocket and played a lively pop song, a favorite from her high school days, with an upbeat melody and silly lyrics about young love. No one was around, or so she thought, so she started dancing clumsily, spinning around and singing along, her arms flailing like an amateur dancer, unbothered by onlookers. Her brown hair fell loose from its bun, whipping wildly in the sea breeze, and a wide, carefree smile spread across her face, a rare freedom she seldom showed during tense workdays. Luke, returning from a night survey with the technical team, stumbled upon this scene from a distance. He paused under the shadow of a palm tree, arms crossed, intending to turn away, thinking it was childish. A CEO like him had no time for such nonsense, but he stayed, unable to look away. Lily looked so free, so alive, utterly unlike the clumsy girl who argued with him in meetings. The faint moonlight lit up her hair, highlighting her sparkling blue eyes, and her awkward spins, nearly tripping over the sand, held a strange charm that kept Luke rooted in place. He thought, "She's so weird, but why do I want to smile?" When Lily spun and tripped on the sand, almost falling flat, Luke couldn't hold back. He stepped forward, his leather shoes crunching on the sand, and teased, "If you're aiming to be a dancer, I'd suggest quitting your job now." Lily jumped, turning around, her blue eyes wide with shock as she saw Luke standing there, hands in his pockets, smirking with a half-mocking, half-gentle expression she rarely saw. She blushed, quickly shutting off the music on her phone. "What are you doing here? Don't just stand there laughing at me." Luke smirked, his blue eyes softening. "I'm not laughing. But if you're going to dance, at least pick a decent song." Lily puffed out her cheeks, retorting instinctively, "Fine, you dance then. I bet you can't." Luke let out a soft laugh, a real laugh, free of the coldness from their first meeting, and unexpectedly held out his hand. "All right, but you'll have to dance with me." Lily hesitated, staring at his outstretched hand as if it were a trap. She stammered, I don't dance with people who can't dance." But Luke didn't pull back, a playful glint in his eyes. "Try me. If I'm worse than you, I lose." Lily blushed but took his hand, the warmth of his palm startling her slightly. They began spinning in clumsy circles on the sand, their steps awkward and colliding, bursting into laughter like kids, the sound blending with the gentle crash of the waves. When the song ended, they stood closer than intended, their breaths mingling in the salty sea air. Lily panted, laughing. "You're terrible at this." Luke let go of her hand, turning aside to hide his smile. "You're not bad when you're not arguing with me." Lily smiled, her heart pounding. "You too, when you're not so full of yourself." They stood there quiet for a moment, the waves and wind filling the space between them. Lily sat down on the sand, hugging her knees, gazing at the sea. "You know, I come out here because it reminds me of home. In Chicago, I just have a small apartment, no one but a few old books. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere." Her voice softened, tinged with a rare sadness. Luke sat beside her, keeping a small distance to avoid making her uncomfortable, his blue eyes gently fixed on her. "I'm not much different. I have everything. Company, money, but no one really there. I always thought I didn't need anyone until—" He trailed off, unfinished. Lily turned to him, curious. "Until what?" Luke looked out at the sea, his voice low. "Until you spilled coffee on my jacket. I hated you then, but now I think it wasn't so bad." Lily laughed, nudging his shoulder. "Seriously? But I hated you too. Your arrogance drove me nuts. Then I realized you're not all bad." Luke turned back, their eyes meeting. "I'm not good at this talking stuff, Lily. I grew up with my dad. He taught me how to win, not how to live. I didn't know how to get close to anyone until you showed up, arguing with me every day." Lily smiled, her voice gentle. "I'm clumsy, always scared of messing up. But with you, I feel a little braver." They fell silent, but it wasn't awkward anymore. It was warm, like an invisible thread drawing them closer. Luke stood, offering his hand. "Dance again. I don't want to lose to you." Lily took it, and they spun a few more clumsy rounds on the sand, laughing loudly when he tripped and pulled her down with him. They lay on the sand, staring at the starry sky, and for the first time, they felt no need to hide. Sharp words and evasive glances gave way to just being enough together. One night during a site survey, Lily and Luke walked across an open lot when heavy rain poured down. Lily shouted, "It's raining! Run!" But Luke pulled her back, shielding her with the umbrella he carried. They huddled under the small umbrella, shoulders touching, rain dripping onto Lily's hair. She shivered, and Luke took off his suit jacket, draping it over her. "Don't get sick. I don't want to do meetings alone." Lily looked at him, surprised. "You're worried about me?" Luke turned his face away, muttering, "Don't get the wrong idea. I just don't want delays." But as the rain eased, he added softly, "You're not as bad as I thought." Lily giggled. "You're not so bad either when you're not driving me crazy." They stood under the umbrella, their eyes meeting longer than usual, a warm feeling creeping through the cold rain. On Saturday night at the Hilton Head Resort, a small party was held to celebrate the project's progress. Lily, unused to fancy events, wore a simple green dress borrowed from the front desk, her hair loosely tied, her blue eyes shining under the chandelier light. Luke, in an elegant black suit, stood in a corner, a glass of wine in hand, his cold gaze sweeping the crowd, until he saw Lily enter, nearly tripping over the carpet's edge. He smirked, thinking, "She hasn't changed a bit." Lily wasn't great at socializing, but colleagues dragged her into a drinking group. She meant to sip a little beer to be polite, but it hit her fast. The light alcohol turned her cheeks pink, her voice slurring. She sank onto a sofa, eyes hazy, mumbling nonsense. "Luke, that arrogant jerk. But he's kinda handsome." Luke, nearby chatting with a partner, heard his name. He turned, seeing Lily slumped on the sofa, an empty beer glass in hand, her blue eyes half closed. He sighed, stepped over, intending to call staff to take her back. But she suddenly called out, "Luke! Where are you? Don't hide from me!" The crowd laughed, and Luke, blushing rare for him, quickly pulled her away before she said anything worse. He helped Lily to her room, one arm supporting her, the other opening the door. She flopped onto the bed, mumbling, "Luke, stop arguing with me. It's tiring." Luke sat beside her, planning to leave a glass of water and go, but he couldn't take his eyes off her face. Red cheeks, lips moving, a goofy smile in her drunken haze. He muttered, "You're such a hassle." But he pulled the blanket over her, staying all night, wiping sweat from her brow when she ran a slight fever from the alcohol. In the dark, Luke watched her, realizing he was addicted to her smile and voice. Things he once found annoying now made his heart race. He wondered, since when did I start caring about her like this? As dawn approached, Lily stirred, opening her eyes groggily, seeing Luke there, his gaze unusually tender. She murmured, "Luke, you're here?" Then fell back asleep, unaware her words left him stunned. The next morning, Lily woke with a pounding head, finding Luke on a chair, holding a coffee cup, looking calm as if he hadn't stayed up. She blushed, vaguely recalling the night. Did I do anything stupid?" Luke smirked. "You called my name all night. I should charge you for babysitting." Lily covered her face. "Oh God, how embarrassing." Luke set the coffee down, his eyes no longer cold but full of meaning. He stood, stepping closer, and as Lily looked up, he bent down and kissed her again. This time, it wasn't to silence her, but because he couldn't hold back. The kiss was gentle yet deep, carrying warmth and sincerity he'd never shown. When he pulled away, he whispered, "I think I like you." Lily froze, her heart thumping, stammering, "You? Are you serious?" Luke smiled softly, a real smile for the first time. "Yes, and this time, you don't need to slap me." Lily blushed but smiled back, a grin lighting up the room. From that moment, they knew the dislike between them was gone, replaced by something far sweeter. Part 4. A Gentle Challenge. After the second kiss in the resort room at Hilton Head, Lily Brooks and Luke Grayson were no longer two adversaries constantly bickering. An unnamed affection had blossomed between them, a sweet tremor mixed with awkwardness that both tried to conceal with teasing remarks and evasive glances. But though their hearts had begun to beat in sync, Lily's rational mind pulled her back to a harsh reality. She and Luke belonged to two vastly different worlds, and that realization frightened her. Everything started to waver on Monday morning, the final day of their business trip to Hilton Head. Lily sat in the meeting room, her hands scribbling notes hurriedly on a scrap of paper, but her mind was no longer focused on the resort's design plans. She stole a glance at Luke, who stood before the whiteboard, explaining the project completion plan with a deep, confident voice. He wore a fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing a small crescent-shaped scar on his wrist. A minor detail she now found endearing rather than unfamiliar. But then she looked down at herself. A wrinkled white blouse from a rushed hand wash, faded old sneakers, and brown hair still messy from the morning sea breeze she hadn't had time to tame. A wave of unease surged within her. Who was she to stand beside someone like Luke? That day's meeting was more tense than usual. Luke, with his fast-paced work style, demanded that Lily's team submit the final report by the end of the day, despite the original schedule allowing 2 more days. "We don't have time to dawdle," he declared, tapping his pen on the table like an order, his cold blue eyes sweeping the room. Lily, already exhausted from days of non-stop work and her mixed feelings for Luke, couldn't hold back her retort. "What good is rushing? Do you want quality or just something slapped together? I'm not a machine you can control." Luke frowned, his voice low but sharp. "I thought you were smart enough to know what to prioritize, Miss Brooks. Or do you need me to reteach you from scratch?" Lily shot up, hands braced on the table, her blue eyes blazing. "Don't you dare condescend to me again. I work with my heart, not just to chase deadlines like you." The room's atmosphere heated up, but this time it wasn't just about work. Lily felt an invisible gulf between them. Luke with his expensive suit, commanding voice, in a world of million-dollar meetings and lavish parties she could never belong to. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling with emotion. "We're too different, Luke. You live in a world I'll never understand. I'm just a lowly clerk, and you're a CEO, someone who has everything. I'm scared you're only infatuated for now, and one day you'll see I'm not enough." Luke froze, a flicker of surprise in his blue eyes, then stepped closer, his voice low but softer. "What are you saying? This is about work, not personal stuff." But Lily shook her head, her eyes misting with tears. "It's not just work. I don't know if I can fit into your world. I'm afraid you'll get tired of me, or I'll let you down." Luke opened his mouth to argue, but Lily didn't let him speak. She turned away, her voice quieter. "I need space to think." She left the meeting room, her steps hurried as if fleeing, leaving Luke standing there, clutching his pen, his gaze empty. He wanted to chase after her, pull her back, but a part of him feared. Could she handle the pressures of his world? The parties he had to attend, the scrutiny from partners, the tabloid stories about his private life. Could Lily, with her simplicity and clumsiness, step into that without getting hurt? That night, Lily called her boss, Mr. Tom, and asked to leave the island early, citing a need to return to Chicago for personal work matters. Mr. Tom was surprised but agreed. "Are you okay, Lily? You've seemed off since yesterday." Lily forced a laugh. "I'm fine, just need a break." Luke, hearing the news from his assistant, sat silently in his room, staring out at the sea through the large glass window. He felt a strange void, not the anger or frustration he was used to, but a sadness unfamiliar to him. Lily departed the next morning, dragging her suitcase through the resort lobby without looking back. Luke stood on his balcony, watching her figure fade into the dawn light, his hand gripping the railing, telling himself, "She's right. Maybe we don't fit." But his heart whispered otherwise, and he knew he couldn't let it end like this. 2 weeks passed since Lily left Hilton Head, and Luke Grayson felt like he'd lost a small but vital piece of his life. The days in Chicago weren't the same. Meetings grew dull. The extravagant parties he once knew well now only bored him. He realized he missed Lily, not just her clumsy smile or her chirpy voice when she argued with him, but her presence, the way she made him feel real in a world full of pretense. He missed the mornings she brewed coffee in the meeting room, always adding a spoonful of sugar, though he didn't like it sweet, and the way she grinned when he grimaced. Good coffee's supposed to be like this. Luke sat in his penthouse office in downtown Chicago, gazing through the glass at the bustling traffic under a fiery sunset. He'd tried to work as usual, running Grayson Properties with his familiar cold efficiency, but every time he held a coffee cup brought by his assistant, it tasted bland, and he longed for the way Lily brewed it, clumsy yet heartfelt. He told himself, "I don't need her. She's just an ordinary employee." But then he laughed, a self-mocking laugh, because he knew he was lying to himself. One Saturday evening, Luke decided to act. He couldn't stand this emptiness any longer. He remembered Lily calling his name in her drunken haze, the kiss he couldn't hold back, and realized that without her, he'd lost the small joys in his life. But how could he win her back? He wasn't good with sweet words. He was a CEO, not a poet. Then he recalled a joking remark Lily made during their first meeting. "If you could brew coffee as good as me, I wouldn't argue with you anymore." Luke laughed aloud alone in his luxurious penthouse kitchen, a place he rarely entered except to use the automatic coffee maker. He decided to try, brewing a cup of coffee to bring to Lily, as an apology and a clumsy way to say he needed her. He rummaged through the cabinets, finding ground coffee, sugar, and some cream, then set to work creating. The result was a disaster. Burnt coffee, too much sugar, and cream floating like soup. But he didn't give up, poured it into a thermos, put on his coat, and drove to the working-class south side of Chicago, where Lily lived. When Luke stood before Lily's small apartment, a rundown building with peeling paint, he felt nervous for the first time in his life, like a schoolboy about to confess. He knocked, holding the thermos of self-made coffee, thinking to himself, "If she laughs at me, I'll just leave." Lily opened the door, wearing a loose gray t-shirt and shorts, her hair tied loosely, her blue eyes widening in shock when she saw Luke standing there in his elegant black suit. What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling with surprise. Luke held up the thermos, trying to keep a serious face but his eyes gleaming with sincerity. I missed you so much, Lily. Lily froze, her cheeks flushing pink at his words. Luke stepped closer, his voice deep and tender. I tried living without you these past 2 weeks, and I hated it. I miss the way you make coffee, even when it's too sweet, and how you make me laugh, make me feel less alone. I'm not good with sweet talk, but I know I need you, more than any deal I've ever signed. Lily bit her lip, her heart pounding, but then she burst into a clear, ringing laugh that echoed down the small hallway. Oh my God, Luke, you made coffee? It smells burnt from here. Luke blushed, but her laughter melted him. He set the thermos on the table by the door, stepped forward, and took her hands firmly. I'm terrible at making coffee, but I'm good at loving you. Give me a chance to prove it. Lily looked into his eyes, seeing the deep sincerity in those once cold blue eyes, now warm in a way she'd never seen. She stepped back, hand on her chest, her voice soft. Are you serious? Or is it just because you miss me arguing with you? Luke pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, whispering in her ear. I'm serious. I missed you every day, every minute. I missed your smile, your voice, and these lips. Without waiting for her reply, Luke leaned down, kissing her gently but deeply, his lips pressing against hers with the warmth and longing he'd suppressed for 2 weeks. Lily kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, their hearts beating in sync in that sweet kiss. When they parted, Lily blushed, whispering, Your coffee's awful, but your kiss isn't. Luke laughed, holding her tighter. I'll learn to make coffee as good as you, as long as you're by my side. They stood there in her small apartment, laughing under the warm yellow light, and Lily knew she couldn't run from this love anymore, not when Luke had come to her with all his clumsy, heartfelt sincerity. Part 5. A Sweet Conclusion. After that emotional evening in Emma Brooks' small apartment in Chicago, Emma and Luke embarked on a new journey. No longer two adversaries constantly arguing, but two hearts gradually learning to harmonize, understand, and love each other. They started dating soon after, not in a hurried or ostentatious way like other couples in Luke's glamorous world. For them, love was about simple things, small moments brimming with meaning. Emma, with her clumsy but endearing nature, learned to trust Luke, to believe that he wasn't just momentarily infatuated with her, but genuinely wanted to build a future with her, even though she was just an ordinary office worker with old sneakers and messy brown hair. Luke, whose cold demeanor had once been a shield against the world, learned to slow down, to listen to Emma, cherish her sincerity, and let her into his life without fearing the differences between them. Their first dates unfolded in sweet simplicity. One Friday evening, Luke took Emma to a small coffee shop in Wicker Park, where he patiently stood behind the counter with her, trying to brew a cup of coffee as good as hers under her guidance. He clumsily poured too much cream, spilling it over the edge, and Emma burst into laughter. Oh my gosh, Luke, you're a disaster. How can you be a CEO and not know how to make coffee? Luke smirked, pulling her into his arms. I don't need to be good at making coffee. I just need to be good at loving you. Emma blushed, standing on tiptoe to kiss his cheek lightly. Well, you're pretty good at that, but I'll still argue with you forever. Luke laughed heartily, holding her tighter, and in that moment they both knew they'd found something precious amid the most ordinary things. They overcame their differences with understanding and patience. Emma gradually got used to Luke, occasionally attending lavish high society parties. She no longer felt out of place when he held her hand and walked in, introducing her to partners with a proud voice. This is Emma Brooks, the most important person in my life. She began to see that his world wasn't a barrier, but a part of him she could learn to accept, as long as he was by her side. Luke, in turn, cherished Emma's simplicity more than ever. He preferred evenings on the sofa in her small apartment, reading old books with her or watching a romantic movie, over the extravagant parties that once dominated his life. Once, as they strolled through Lincoln Park in Chicago under a fiery sunset, Emma hesitantly asked, Do you ever think we're too different? I mean, you have the whole world, your company, money, fame, and I just have a small apartment, a few old books, and an ordinary job." Luke stopped, turning to her, his deep blue eyes gazing straight into hers. He took her hands, his voice low but warm. "Emma, I don't need the whole world. I just need you. You're the only thing that makes me feel complete. Not money, not fame, just you." Emma blushed, her blue eyes glistening with tears, and squeezed his hands tighter. "You say that without feeling cheesy?" Luke chuckled, pulling her into his arms. "Cheesy's fine as long as you believe me." They kept dating, and their love grew stronger through the little things. Luke learned to make coffee, though still terrible, and every weekend morning he brought Emma a burnt cup, laughing when she wrinkled her nose. "I'm getting better, right?" Emma learned to join him in meetings without dropping documents anymore, and Luke always stood behind her, ready to catch her if she stumbled. They no longer feared their differences, because they knew those very differences made them perfect together. 3 months later, Luke decided to take Emma back to Hilton Head, where it all began, where he'd first kissed her to silence her, and then kissed her again, because he couldn't hold back his heart. They arrived on an autumn afternoon, the cool breeze sweeping across the beach, carrying the scent of salt water and wildflowers. Emma walked barefoot on the sand, laughing loudly as the waves splashed her feet. "You know, I still remember when you jumped into the pool for my documents. So silly." Luke walked beside her, hands in his pockets, smiling softly. "Silly, sure, but I don't regret it. It made me realize how much you matter." As the sun sank, painting the sky a brilliant orange, Luke stopped in the middle of the beach, took Emma's hand, and turned her to face him. He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket, opening it to reveal a simple yet elegant silver ring, etched with a pattern like the old silver bracelet she'd worn at Hilton Head. A keepsake from Granny May he'd noticed from the early days. Emma's eyes widened, her heart racing as Luke knelt on the sand, his blue eyes gentle but serious. "I kissed you to shut you up the first time, but now I want to kiss you every day, every morning, every night, for the rest of my life. Emma Brooks, will you be my wife?" Emma stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from overwhelming happiness. She nodded, her voice choked. "Yes, Luke, I will." Luke stood, slipped the ring onto her ring finger, and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply, a sweet, warm kiss carrying a promise of forever. They stood there on Hilton Head Beach, holding each other under the sunset, the waves crashing softly like a blessing for their love. Emma whispered in his ear, "You're awful at making coffee, but you're amazing at kissing." Luke laughed, hugging her tighter. "I'll work on the coffee, but the kissing I've already mastered." Emma and Luke's wedding took place 6 months after the beach proposal, not in a luxurious hotel or extravagant resort familiar to Luke, but at Lincoln Park in Chicago, where they'd walked and come to understand each other after their time apart. It was a radiant spring afternoon, with cherry trees blooming in white, scattering petals on the grass like a natural carpet. Emma wanted a small, simple wedding, and Luke, though he could have spent millions on a grand ceremony, agreed instantly, knowing it was what she loved, and all he wanted was to see her radiant smile. Emma emerged in a simple white wedding dress, unadorned but graceful, reaching her ankles, its thin silk fabric hugging her petite frame. Her brown hair hung loose naturally, adorned with a small wreath of baby's breath she'd made that morning. Luke waited under a large cherry tree, wearing a black suit without a tie, a small tweak to match her relaxed style. As she approached, he couldn't hold back a smile, a genuine smile, free of the coldness from their first meeting on that fateful flight. "You're so beautiful," he whispered as she stood beside him, her hand gripping his tightly. Emma blushed, whispering back, "You're not bad either, when you're not driving me crazy." The ceremony was intimate, with only a few close guests, Mr. Tom, Emma's boss, a handful of Horizon Realty colleagues, and some of Luke's college friends. There was no grand orchestra or lavish feast, just a long wooden table laden with sandwiches, fresh fruit, and, as Emma insisted, an old coffee maker she'd brought from home, set in the center as a symbol of their love story. Mr. Tom officiated, chuckling as he read the vows. Luke, do you promise to make coffee for Emma every day, even though you're terrible at it? Luke nodded, holding Emma's hand tighter. I promise, though she'll argue with me every time I mess it up. Emma giggled, gazing at him with sparkling blue eyes. And I promise not to slap you when you kiss me to shut me up. At least not too often. As they exchanged rings, two simple silver bands engraved with each other's names inside, and kissed beneath the cherry tree, petals drifted onto their shoulders like nature's blessing. The kiss was sweet, gentle, and full of love, a perfect end to a journey from dislike to inseparability. The guests clapped and cheered, and Emma hugged Luke tightly, whispering, "Thank you for not giving up." Luke kissed her forehead, his voice warm. "Thank you for slapping me. It woke me up to how much I need you." A year later, Emma and Luke continued growing their careers together, but it was no longer just tense meetings. Emma remained an ordinary office worker at Horizon Realty, her creative ideas brightening real estate projects, though her clumsiness persisted, occasionally dropping pens on meeting tables or tripping while carrying blueprints to clients. Luke, as CEO of Grayson Properties, still collaborated with her on numerous projects, and they argued as usual, but he was always the one to give in. One afternoon at Horizon Realty's office, Emma and Luke sat across from each other, discussing a new condo project. Emma held up a sketch, excited. "Look at this. I want to add a rooftop garden. Greenery will make the space come alive." Luke frowned, his deep voice steady. "You and your plants again? Costs will skyrocket. And the timeline—" Emma cut him off, jumping up. "Timeline, timeline. All you ever talk about is the timeline. Residents need a living space, not a concrete box." Luke crossed his arms, smirking. "If you keep arguing like this, when will we finish?" But then he sighed, raising his hands in surrender. "Fine, add the garden, but don't bankrupt me." Emma grinned triumphantly, sitting back down. "I knew you'd give in." Luke looked at her, his blue eyes soft. "I always give in to you, because I don't want to lose that smile." They now lived in a modest house in Chicago's suburbs, not Luke's luxurious penthouse, but a cozy home with a small garden Emma tended herself, a perfect blend of their worlds. One evening, 8 months pregnant, Emma sat with Luke on their porch, watching the sunset glow red over the garden. She leaned on his shoulder, smiling. "Who do you think our baby will take after? Slapping like me or kissing like you?" Luke leaned down, kissing her lips softly, whispering, "Hopefully both, so I have a reason to kiss you every day." Luke stood, fetching a cup of coffee he'd brewed, still burnt as ever, and handed it to Emma. She wrinkled her nose but laughed. "You're still awful at this since the day we met." Luke hugged her from behind, whispering, "I don't need to be good at coffee, because I've got you to brew it for me." Emma leaned back against his chest, her blue eyes shining. "I'll make coffee for you forever." That scene, Luke and Emma on their porch, laughing amid the small garden, with burnt coffee and a steadfast love, was the warm conclusion to their story. A simple happiness that began with a spilled coffee and an unexpected kiss, now stretched on forever in life's most ordinary moments, where they were not just colleagues, but family. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.